Well, we were subject to some of those health checks because, as you mentioned, we were among the passengers who left Wuhan to come back to Beijing just a few hours ago, really. And we were among the last trains to leave before that lockdown went into place. Now, it's pretty basic as far as what the screening in of itself looks like. I mean, as soon as we got off the train here, it was one by one that they would put a thermometer to our heads and check to see whether or not we had a fever, and then let us continue walking. Those are what we see. I can also tell you, as you're going through security to get onto the train, leaving Wuhan, we noticed they had a kind of a system set up where they had monitors and they were doing thermal detectors, and so they were looking without folks even realizing it at that moment. And all the folks who are now staff members in those stations, and even the police and the paramilitary who are there, are noticeably covering their faces as well. In Wuhan in particular, that's now mandatory, this wearing a face mask to protect not only yourself, but others. The journey for us was interesting. I mean, it was a 3 a.m. wake up that really got us mobilized to realize that this might be the last time in a good number of days that we would be able to leave Wuhan pretty easily. And so we did book a train. We managed to get out, but so did, I would say, hundreds of others who were along with us, who got up early, who were with their families, who got together the luggage they had and got into long lines waiting to try to get a ticket on the train. And most that we saw were able to do that and able to get on. There was one instance that stands out to me, though, as we were boarding, and we noticed a couple standing there. And they went all the way up to the platform, John, and they did not get on the train. But they were waving at their son and his grandfather. They sent the two of them on here to Beijing, and CNN asked, why did you not join them? And they said they didn't want to risk exposing their loved ones who live up here to any potential threats. So that tells you just how divisive it is, even with families. And this is a time when families are supposed to be together. It's the Spring Festival, the Lunar New Year. And so it's causing, for some, separation. John?
Yeah, it's tough. And for some, it's their only time of year when they actually get to spend time with family, and that's being disrupted. To you, Stephen, what is unusual or different these days about China is social media, access to the internet, where people have a certain amount of freedom to vent, to have their say about what's going on. So what have you noticed about sort of the public reaction to all of this?
That's right, John. We are certainly seeing a growing number of posts, really people voicing their frustration or even anger, as well as fear about the situation. Because, you know, we are glad our colleagues are back here safe and sound. But the fact that the government only put in this kind of travel lockdown overnight was very concerning and disturbing to a lot of people. Because remember, the first case was more than a month ago. And even after the first cluster of cases were discovered, traced back to that one seafood market in Wuhan. That market remained open for weeks, teeming with people. And then, of course, coupled with the fact that hundreds of thousands of people, students, migrant workers, have been leaving Wuhan in the past few weeks with very little protection to go back there to their hometowns for celebration of the Chinese New Year. That was also very disturbing to a lot of health experts as well as now the general public, because that could mean that all these people had been walking pathogens for a long time. So a lot of people think even this drastic measure of a city being quarantined, the entire city being quarantined, may be too little, too late. Now, another issue right now, of course, based on what we have seen on social media as well as from people we have talked to on the ground, is the facility, the hospital facilities, the healthcare system in Wuhan seems to have been overwhelmed. We have been hearing stories of people lining up outside of hospital for hours only to be turned away by nurses and doctors, even though these people were displaying the symptoms of this coronavirus. So this, of course, John, is very, very concerning, disturbing, even with the government putting on a very brave face, still saying they're confident they're able to contain this outbreak.